there a white genocide in South Africa?
No, there's no sign of it, never has been. In fact, whites are economically the strongest group. They benefited from democracy more than anybody else. 64% of all boardrooms in South Africa are still white. The average income of white South Africans are vastly higher than black South Africans. No. They have better schools, they have better education, private health care. This is the land of milk and honey if you're white.
Has any land been expropriated in South Africa without compensation since the first all-race election in this country?
I'm not aware of anyone. Not a single farm that I'm aware of was expropriated without compensation since 1994.
So how do we interpret President Trump's executive order?
It is possible that South Africa has offended the United States with its policy on the Palestinians, and it could be that with its policy on Russia, the ambiguities of those policies and its relationship with the Chinese. It could be. I think that does play a role. But there was something very, very sensitive that was touched upon. And in South Africa, right-wing groups, so-called civil society groups, we know that they have access to the Trump administration because they claim that. And if you listen to what Trump has said, it corresponds exactly with the genocide narrative that they sell and that they market, and that whites are victims of the democratic system and the constitution in South African legislation. So there's an overlay, there's an immediate overlay, it's an unquestionable overlay between what Trump has said and these right-wing groups have said. So I'm afraid I have to believe them when they say they have direct access to the Trump administration, and we see it in what Trump's doing.
Oh my God.
We do not have a genocide in South Africa.
This South African farmer wants to set the record straight. He wrote an open letter to US President Donald Trump after Trump offered Afrikaner farmers refugee status.
But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about, but it's a terrible thing that's taking place, and farmers are being killed. They happen to be white.
The first group of 59 Afrikaners traveled to the US in early May. It has raised questions about why a group of white South Africans of Dutch and French descent are being granted refugee status when the Trump administration has stopped all other refugee programs. De Jager represents a large farmer organization which has members across South Africa. He says while it's true that farm murders are a major problem, Trump hasn't got the facts straight.
I wrote the letter to Trump because I feared that he might have a misunderstanding of what is going on here. We thanked him for having sympathy with our cause, but we also said, rather help us to make things better here. Help us to, within our lifetime, fix the problems we have here. And it's not only a race thing. Black farmers have similar problems too, and we need those problems also to be attended to.
Trump's genocide claims are a result of brutal attacks on farmers in South Africa. Most of the murders happened during armed robberies. There's a large memorial at Nampo, South Africa's largest farming expo, dedicated to farm murders. It contains around 2,800 names, going as far back as the 1970s.
Y'all may not believe this, but being born and raised Alabama, I have never once ever looked somebody in the eye and told them to come back where they came from. I ain't never said no, speak no English, nothing like that. In the next few months, if you see a video coming out of me screaming something like that or even more ignorant, just know I'm saying it 6 inches away from a white South Africaner's face. Because apparently they're coming to Alabama. I ain't never said nothing like go back to Africa. When I tell you I'm gonna put my whole body into it, I mean, I'm gonna get that like deep chest voice. Just go back to where you came from. Anyway, yeah.
The Afrikaners are heading to America. The United States is granting refugee status to nearly 50 Afrikaners this week. But who exactly are they? Well, most are descendants of Dutch settlers who colonized South Africa in the 17th century. There are roughly 3 million Afrikaners. A fraction of them, 70,000, have indicated that they want to move to America. Now, Afrikaners benefited from apartheid, a racist system that oppressed black South Africans. But President Trump says they're being persecuted for their race and that the government is fueling violence against them.
But it's a terrible thing that's taking place, and farmers are being killed. They happen to be white. But whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa.
Trump.
Well, apparently, on the first video we saw the guy, they were doing an interview, and he said there is no genocide going on Africa. There's no genocide. They're not killing anybody. So I don't know why Trump is saying that there is a genocide going on in Africa. If anybody knows, please let me know in the comments below, because apparently there is no genocide. They have been, killed farmers, white farmers in Africa, but it's because of the robbery. It could happen to anybody, any country. It looks like they just go to rob their houses, and they unfortunately they kill the farmers, but it's not because it's a genocide going on. So they said it, and everybody's saying it. So he just wants to bring white African to United States, especially farmers, because they go into Alabama and to these other states where they used to be, where there is a lot of farm land, and most of the farmers here in the United States, they lost their farm because everything's going on with this administration, the tariff, and they lost their land. And it looks like the United States government, the Trump administration, is going to facilitate this land to these people, so they could plant crops and all that. But like Trump said, it doesn't matter if you're white or black, we're gonna help you. But he decide to bring only white Africans to the United States, people from South Africa, and he still say that they are getting killed, and there is a genocide in Africa, but it doesn't look like there is any genocide. He just making that stuff up and pretend that's what's happening in Africa. And like they said, he's getting rid of programs, to other countries, and he decided to bring these people to United States. He closing the doors to Cubans, Latinos, Venezuelan, Haitian, but he's opening the door to people from South Africa. So let me know why do you think Trump decide to do that? Maybe because they're white, or what are the reasons? Because I really don't understand.
Trump claims South Africa's policies make it difficult for Afrikaners to secure jobs and run businesses. He's also pointing to a law that allows South Africa's government to take control of private land. But that law only applies in very rare situations. And so far, the government hasn't taken a single piece of land. The law is supposed to address inequality. Apartheid ended in 1994, but today the average white household still earns 5 times more than the average black household. Some black South Africans have become wealthy, but for most, the rate of change has been extremely slow. A study conducted in 2018 explored how long it would take for someone born in a low-income home to raise their standard of living so they're earning the average income. The answer? 9 generations. In other words, more than 200 years. This is why South Africa has these policies. But Trump doesn't seem to think they're necessary. Instead, he wants to make Afrikaners great again.
This Afrikaner refugee had a 5-bedroom house and a mining company in South Africa. The way refugees have. He had to leave behind his...
You see, 5-bedroom house. 5-bedroom house. Do you think he's being persecuted from somebody?
Car, his dogs, and even his mother. You know, the way that families that are in terrible danger and have to flee usually leave behind their mother. He's also a bigot, at the very least an anti-Semite and an Islamophobe. A few years ago, he posted vile, sweeping, stereotypical statements about Jews on the internet, and he also posted clapping hand emojis in response to a post about assaulting Muslims. In his defense, he says that he was standing up for his religion, and he was also on very heavy medication at the time, specifically morphine. And I'm sure we all know that when somebody takes morphine, they suddenly become a hateful bigot. This is well documented. And he says that the land expropriation in South Africa has gone too far, your land becomes worthless. I can't wait for him to find out that America has basically the same expropriation laws as South Africa, they just call it something else.
So I just saw that the McDonald Trump administration just brought in a group of white South African refugees. And look, I want to be very clear. I don't have a problem with that. If people are in danger, if they're facing legitimate persecution, I'm glad we can offer them safety. That's what a decent country should do. But what I do have a problem with is the hypocrisy. Because this same administration that just rolled out the red carpet for 59 white Afrikaners is the same one turning away brown and black immigrants fleeing violence, war, and political collapse. They're shutting down the refugee pipeline for Haitians, Venezuelans, Central Americans, Sudanese families, people who are just running for their lives. But suddenly, when it's a group that looks a little more familiar, the border opens up, the taxpayer dollars flow, and the compassion kicks in. Let's just call it what it is, selective empathy. Because don't forget, McDonald Trump shut down the entire refugee resettlement program in his first 100 days. People who had already been vetted and approved were left stranded. But somehow this group makes it through. I don't think that's a coincidence. That's a policy choice. So yeah, I'm happy these 59 people are safe. I wish them peace and healing. But I really wish that we would give a damn when the people knocking on the door weren't white, because compassion should not come with the skin tone requirement.
White mediocrity. That's what this is about. And so when we're talking about South Africa, where 7% of the white population controls 90% of the wealth and all of the farmland, there needs to be a process through which we can redistribute wealth and access. It's equitable distribution. And it hasn't occurred yet in 30 years since apartheid fell. White farmers have not lost their farms. They're trying to redress this, and there are programs in place for which people can voluntarily sell off their land. And there's another program in place where government can take farms if it's in the interest of the country. You know, like we do here, it's called eminent domain. It's like what Trump did with the wall on the border, where he took farmland away from private farmers. It's interesting how that doesn't get brought up, because this is white grievance as policy. It's white supremacy as policy. It's the great replacement theory as an underlying governing philosophy. That's what this is.
White people with less than $100,000 and that own a red hat. Make sense of this for me. America first, but make sense of this for me. The front half of a centaur that's running this country, there's a good joke about Elon being in the back half with a puppet, is currently expediting refugees from South Africa to America with short and long-term housing while you're still poor. Before they helped you, like, anybody with less than 100 grand is poor. You're still poor. I know there's different levels. You're still in the group that is not their friend circle. Probably never will be. Likely will never be. Does it hurt or bother you that this group that's putting America first is now putting South Africans first, who, by the way, got there from where? Not America. They're actually Dutch, French, and German colonists. Make this one make sense to me. I feel like you can't just say, like, they're refugees, they need our help, because if that was the case, is it different because they're white? Just say that then. Just say that. What's that song by YG and Nipsey Hussle again?
Just imagine. They are bringing, this African, South African people here. Nothing against them, but like this guy was saying, you need to help American people first. Help American people first, but no. In this case, like always, we are helping somebody else first, and then we are not thinking about what's going on here in the United States. It's like your house is on fire and the neighbor's house is on fire, and you go to help the neighbors first instead of trying to put your house fires first, put it out first. But in this case is the opposite. and they are opening the doors to these South Africans and closing the doors to the rest of the people that are already here in the United States. People that are here, they have been, you know, working legally in the United States for years and years, and they're gonna take that privilege away. Well, they already took it, and they're just trying to deport everybody. But because these people are white, that's why they are opening the doors. So yeah, yes, come to the United States. We give you housing, we give you land, and we give you anything you need. Just come to the United States. And they said it, you know, they are not facing any genocide in Africa, South Africa, but that's what Trump is claiming, that they are facing genocide in South Africa, and that's why he decided to help them. It is okay to help somebody, you know, if they are, you know, being prosecuted from in other countries, but it's not the case. So he just doing this, I don't know, for his own benefit or something. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about this whole situation? If you made it this far into the video, please consider subscribing and like the video. It helps me a lot. Let's grow together, and see you guys on the next video. Thank you, and bye bye.